Right, let's look at other news now. We get into this discussion. So, an 80-year-old farmer and a miner in Kroonstad in the Free State have appeared in court in connection with a murder. The farmer was arrested yesterday after the discovery of a decomposed body on his farm. Let's discuss this case now. We're joined by a Forum SA CEO Advocate Kgagudi Morota, as well as Rural and Farm Workers Development Organization's Executive Director, Mr. Billy Claasen. Gentlemen, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us once again. The issue of tensions in our rural areas, and of course the question around whether or not any of it is racially motivated comes back into the spotlight, and it's got South Africans talking. But Billy, I think let's start with you. Just face value, we've got the videos that were being shown yesterday that obviously now we're unable to show, knowing that one of the arrests that were made was that of a miner. But we've seen the interactions of this man speaking, for instance, to journalists. Just looking at this story from face value, some of the red flags that it raises for your very own organization.
Good evening to you, and good evening to all the viewers. You see, I've seen it yesterday on social media the first time, and I was extremely grieved about the attitude of this man. And this is what happened in many cases, in many areas of our society, where some people think that they are more, they can do more crime than others, and nothing will happen to them. There's no consequences for them if there's crime, if they commit some crime. There's a lot of things that don't come to the fore on farms, especially on some farms in the Western Cape, in somewhere. I can give you a lot of examples. Let's just go to 10 years or 2018. It's 10 years ago now. 2018, he was convicted of murder. Martin Visser was arrested for killed a farm worker on a farm and buried him in a shallow grave. If he has not put pressure on the police, nothing would have happened. There is a widespread perception that it is just a certain group of people or certain race group that is the victims when it comes to farm murders. That, I have said for a long time, is politically driven, and that is a tendency that they to get some support from these other racial groups overseas, and especially with this thing of the USA now, where they said there is these right-wing groups in South Africa said there is genocide, white genocide in South Africa, and there is no such thing as white genocide. These things need to stop. Sometimes farm workers been assaulted by farmers, and then later they die, and then it is natural causes. There was an incident in Portable on a farm. There was an incident in Piketberg on a farm. There was an incident in Calvinia on a farm, and so I can go on and on. I have said before, as I have said before, that crime affects us all, and we all need to unite in the fight against crime. We cannot go and we cannot see that all these things happens to farm workers and nothing happened. We need to take hands in a fight against crime, especially in our rural areas. And here the police needs to play a leading role, and also the authorities. But sometimes the police and them don't even listen to our farm workers.
Interesting perspectives. Advocate Morota, thank you so much for joining us just from the position of Forum South Africa. Billy raises the issue about how, to a great extent, this is very much fueled by racial tensions in South Africa. Is that the view that you hold? I think one of the most heartbreaking things about all of this is the fact that there is, of course, this individual that was buried, and their family still has not been informed of who this victim was. And then at the same time, you've got a miner who is in court today, appearing alongside their grandfather. Just upsetting across the board, and clearly rural communities needing a lot of work to do where race relations are concerned.
Thank you very much, Naleji. Good evening to the viewers at home. And as Forum South Africa, We are so disgusted about the killings of the farm workers. This is not out of ordinary. This is happening at every tick of a second in the farm communities. What we are seeing in that farm, it is happening in many other farms, but because the farm communities are in a distance, are in a remote areas, they are not a normal communities. So most of the farm atrocities and the killings are just swept under the carpet, are not reported to the police. But even if they are, local police stations are taking bribes from the farm owners, and as a result, there is no, application of the rule of law and no justice attained at the end of the day.
Yeah. One of the things that you hear, though, is the farmer in the clip that has been shared over and over again on various platforms as well as on television. Billy, and you've touched on this, as he says, 10 years ago, he admits on camera that he says, 10 years ago, I did shoot someone who tried to attack me on the farm. He says it was a farm attack and I did use my firearm and shoot and kill this person. And he uses the words shoot and, he uses the word kill, which is incredibly shocking when you watch that exchange. Perhaps there is something to be said about whether or not farm attacks are given the attention that they need to be given, and if there is some concession that perhaps farmers do feel that they live in fear. So there's the argument of what's happening in the US about a white genocide, but are farmers in fact living in fear? What do you say to that question, Billy?
I will not say farmers live in fear. This is a perception, and I think this is the narrative they bring on themselves. If farmers live in harmony with their farm workers and the people that work for them and live alongside them and around them, then things like this will not happen. They must stop their arrogance, and they are rude sometimes, and they killed our people, they assault our people on farms, and nothing happened to them. And this, they like in being spoiled by the police also, because nothing happens to them on some farms. And those kind of things needs to stop. There's a narrative that those farmers being murdered, only white farmers, and there's people on farms that been murdered. Our own people being murdered on farms. Then it is an ordinary crime. On Piquet Boerberg, just now recently, there was a murder, a farm murder of a farmer. Then it was a farm murder, and the police special crime unit out of Cape Town, the provincial office of the commissioner, come in and investigated. Then there was a murder and a rape of a farm worker woman. Then the station of Piketberg investigated. Then there was foreigners that black foreigners on migrant workers that killed each other or murdered each other on a farm. Then the police of Piketberg investigated. That is racism in the police, and these kind of things needs to stop. The police must stop spoiling these white extreme groups. And the other thing is, this skop, skit, and donor approach that they are taking in must be stopped. What will happen if all of our people will do that? And this needs to stop. There is this security companies on farms. It is like in vigilante groups. They skop out skit and donor our people alongside the roads every weekend, and this needs to stop. And the police are doing nothing when we are going to complain. There's a white lady on top of Piquet Boerberg. She have like in gunpoint our workers of the Eastern Cape. Nothing happened, and it's people that work for her. Nothing happened, and they're still busy investigating these things. There is people in Vredenburg at a dairy farm. That guy was put into the trunk of his car by the farmer, the dairy farmer. Up until now, it is 1 year later, nothing has happened to that farmer. These kind of things needs to stop.
Yeah, Advocate Morota, Billy, they're saying law enforcement needs to step it up. And again, if you go back to the video of this 80-year-old man, you hear him talking about police were in fact there 10 years ago when he shot this individual. Now, reporter does ask him, what happened to that case? Where did it end up? Who needs to step it up where law enforcement is concerned, just as we get your closing thoughts, Advocate?
Yeah, you see, Naleji, in the farming communities, there is a zero regard of the rule of law. And most of these farm killings and farm atrocities, they emanate from the injustices which are alive and well in such communities. So if we're serious about dealing with the farm killings in this country, we're supposed to use firmly the rule of law in order to curb the further killings at the farms. And, you know, the law must be a master, and those who are applying the law, they must be the servants who apply the law. That will guarantee the supremacy of the law in the country. It means that if we want to achieve justice in a community which is not yet perfect, the relationship between persons or people living in that community must be regulated firmly through the rule of law. But in the contemporary South Africa, we do not see those who are responsible to enforce the law doing that effectively. We are talking about the farm killings now, 66 years later, after people in Mpumalanga were killed and planted in the farms as fertilizers. But our government is not serious in dealing with the perpetuation of the farm killings like that. And people will, you know, they'll reach a point where, especially black people, will reach a point where we'll say, we are tired of normalizing death of black people. We should stop normalizing the state of killing of black people. When a black person dies, even in the black communities, we normalize it. We have been seeing it, we have accepted it, we have internalized it. Even our political leaders were saying they were living for, they were believing in the ideals which, if needs be, they were prepared to die. Why is it supposed to be black people always dying? We cannot always be us who die, especially in the hands of the other races like white race, Afrikaners, and so forth.
Yeah, I think the key message, of course, though, is that in a country, in any country, but certainly in our beloved South Africa, we don't want to see the death of anyone across all races, and the culture of violence needing to be one that is looked at even across racial lines. But thank you so much to our guests, Advocate Kgagudi Morota, who is CEO of the Black Forum of South Africa. Thank you as well to Mr. Billy Claasen of the Rural and Farm Workers Development Organization. So we did want the perspective of a grouping like AfriForum, for instance, and we did reach out to AfriForum to get their view on the situation as it has unfolded in Kroonstad in the Free State. And this is the statement that we got back from AfriForum, saying AfriForum condemns all forms of violent crime in the strongest terms. We believe that every incident of this nature must be investigated thoroughly, swiftly, and with integrity. Where wrongdoing is suspected, the full legal process should follow its course to ensure that justice is served fairly and without delay.